Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode of Sip and Simmer with me, Anita Manager. I want to start with that this is a place of spreading positivity and happiness, and you can leave your negativity at the door. Today is Trans Visibility Day, so I really want to start with a little something for all of my trans friends. I want to say that in a time where everybody is struggling with being seen and being visible and having their voices heard, being stuck at home, I couldn't imagine dealing with that every day. Today I want to encourage all of our friends under the trans umbrella to be yourself, be free, and be visible. And if you don't have somebody to reach out to, please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to anybody that you think will listen, because you're loved and we appreciate you for who you are. Happy Trans Awareness Day. Okay, so to begin today, I'm going to be making a shaken daiquiri. I don't like really cold drinks, so that's why I am avoiding doing the blender and filling it with ice, because it's just too cold for me and then it gets all melty and waters everything down. So I've got my shaker here ready with some ice in it. Into the shaker, I'm going to add 1 ounce of simple syrup. I'm going to add 1 ounce of lime. I'm going to add 2 ounces of dark rum. And I'm going to finish that off with 1 tablespoon of coconut milk. So I've been struggling a little bit thinking of different recipes to do for the drinks because I am a vodka soda kind of person. Everybody say thank you to Pat, who just joined, and he is the one who has been giving me some recipes recently for the drinks, because I'm not that creative. I can come up with all the desserts, but finding a correlating beverage is not my cup of tea. So I'm going to pour that right into my martini glass. And this is a very simple but very delicious shaken daiquiri. So we're going to give this a little sip. Oh, that's really good. I would suggest making them individually, because if you make them too much, make too many all at the same time, the coconut milk will start to separate a little bit. So I would definitely suggest this is a 1 at a time thing. And if you can no longer count the ounces of what you're mixing, I think you've hit your limit for the evening. Okay. So, to continue with International Week, I am going to be making a traditional Puerto Rican rice pudding. Now, it was brought to my attention today that Puerto Rico is part of the United States, which I am very aware of. But when I think of Puerto Rican food, I think of more a Latin or Caribbean feel. They have a lot more spices and herbs and different things that we don't necessarily use on the mainland. So I wanted to make this also because it was requested by quite a few people. So I cheated a little bit and I jumped ahead because you're gonna want your water to boil and simmer and reduce a little bit. So in my pot here, I have 3 cups of water. I have a teaspoon of ginger, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of cloves. So that has been boiling for about 15 minutes, just so for it to reduce. It's almost like a tea. So in that water, once it's boiling, and while it boils, you take a sip. So good. Thanks, Pat. Okay, so once this comes back up to a boil, I have 7 ounces of coconut milk, and then I have another 8 ounces of water that I'm going to pour directly into the boiling water. So once that comes up, I'm going to pour in the coconut milk. And this is better if you have your coconut milk and second cup of water waiting on the side, so that way it's room temperature, so that way it comes up to a boil faster, because you're gonna have to refrigerate this afterwards and nobody wants to wait for dessert. Okay, so this is gonna come back to a boil. And after it starts to boil, we're gonna put in our rice and all of the other fixins that goes into it. Typically when I make my rice, like dinner rice, I always try and rinse it off with cold water first to get that starch off of it. When you're using it in a dessert, specifically a rice pudding, I don't know any other desserts with rice in it, you want to leave the starch on the rice so that way it creates a little bit more of the texture and it's going to thicken it a little bit. When you're making rice for dinner or lunch or whatever, if you rinse it off first, it's going to get a little bit fluffier and it's going to cook a little bit more evenly. So that's the big difference here. So I have, how much rice? I have a cup of rice. I have half a cup of sugar. I've got half a cup of raisins. I've got a quarter cup of coconut shavings. And then I have nutmeg and cinnamon that I'm going to save to put on top at the very end because we've already got those flavors going in the first set of water that we got going here. So this is just about boiled. And this is such an easy recipe. This is gonna be super quick. So you get to just stare at me for the evening. All right, so I've got my cup of rice. I've got my half a cup of sugar, quarter cup of coconut flakes, and half a cup of raisins. Now you want to put everything all in at the same time, so that way as it boils and simmers, it's going to reduce and it's going to bring all those flavors together. I came across quite a few recipes that suggested to put in the coconut flakes later and the raisins later, but I found that it didn't have the same potency of the flavor of them. I don't like raisins, but I love this rice pudding, so go figure. Okay, so after I get all that stuff in the pot, I am going to put the lid on it and turn my burner all the way down. So that is going to sit for 20 minutes with the lid on, and then it's going to sit for another 15 minutes with the lid off. While the lid is on, you want to make sure that you don't touch it. You don't stir it, you just let everything just sit in the pot and start to fluff up with all the water and the coconut milk and everything. And when you take the lid off for the second timer, the 15 minutes, you're gonna fluff it up with a fork first. I miss you too, Casey. Soon we'll be together and your hair will be long and luxurious like mine. Okay, so while this continues to simmer and steep and get all of those flavors from all of the seasonings into the rice, I'm going to show you the final product. So this, you can put it into a large bowl and then dose out the servings that way. I prefer to use individual cups like this. One, because nobody fights over it, and two, because I think it's prettier and it's a lot easier to grab out of the refrigerator. And then you also get that little bit of juice that's left over right at the bottom. That is my favorite part. And then of course I like to top everything with whipped cream. I made the whipped cream off camera today, so that way we didn't have to listen to me scream over the blender. But this is 1 cup of heavy cream and 1 tablespoon of vanilla syrup. And then you're just gonna whip that, and you're not gonna whip it too much. Why? Because it turns into butter. Okay, so, listen, since she's here, Jasmine Rice LaBeija is one of my drag idols, and I love her, and she's a ball buster. I would go into the city with my friends, and we would go see the Skinny Brunch with Jasmine and Britta, and they are absolutely my idols. And I know when people tell you not to meet your idols because they're awful, it's true. Jasmine Rice LaBeija is absolutely awful, but in the best of ways. So everybody that is in the room right now should go over to her Facebook and her Instagram and friend her and like all of her pictures. She is absolutely amazing, and she makes almost everything that she wears. It's absolutely incredible. And yes, bitch, I washed my hands. You made me curse on my family show, okay? I washed my hands. Anyway, back to the whipped cream. So you can pipe it on and then put your cinnamon and nutmeg on top of it, but I like to do it a little bit more rustic because it's kind of ugly. I mean, it's like this gray brown color. So I like to get a good heaping topping of the whipped cream on there just to give it a little brightness. I did see a lot of recipes that had the zest of lemon and the zest of orange in it, but I wanted to keep it more on the savory side, so I opted to not do that. So, literally just gonna plop on the whipped cream, just like that. And this, for me, is the most important part, is using fresh cinnamon and nutmeg. I am not wearing heels because I look gigantic enough in my kitchen that I don't need to be towering over everything and trying to hover down. I'm a big dude and I have to wear really tall shoes so that way it compensates, and you probably wouldn't even be able to see my chin if I were wearing the heels that I wear. So, I have my microplane here. I've got a fresh cinnamon stick and I have a fresh nutmeg. It kind of looks like a baby walnut. So what you're gonna do is you're literally just going to grate it like cheese over the top. You wanna be very, very careful when you're using fresh nutmeg, because if you put too much, it gets really soapy. It has like a soapy flavor in it. So you wanna make sure that you use just a little bit, just enough to really give a little bit of color back to the whipped cream on top. So when you're using a microplane, if you hold it vertically, you'll be able to get it directly over where you are microplaning, if that's the word for it. A lot of people will do it this way and you're just gonna make a mess everywhere. So you hold it straight up and down and you just grind it just like this. And then you move on. With cinnamon and nutmeg, like I said, a little bit goes a really long way, so you don't want to overdo it. Okay, so that's my cinnamon. And also be super, super, super careful because these things are super, super sharp and it is very easy to get your knuckle or your fingertip. Thankfully, I have my beautiful nails that are really struggling without being able to get to the nail salon. I've been trying to do it myself, but it's rough. Okay, I pay people for a reason. All right, and then I'm gonna come back with my nutmeg and I'm gonna shave that on top. And that's about it. You can put a maraschino cherry on top. I find that makes it way too sweet. Hi, Lucy. Do you like my wig? I saw your pictures on Instagram and I told Will that I wanted the same one. Am I copying you? Absolutely. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, guys. So this is my Puerto Rican rice pudding. You're gonna wanna refrigerate it after you put it into the vessel. I hate saying vessel, but I really can't think of anything else. But you're gonna wanna refrigerate it for 2 to 4 hours, so that way it really sets and it gets almost like a Jell-O pudding kind of consistency. And then you put your whipped cream on. Don't put the whipped cream on and then put it in the refrigerator, because then it gets kind of buttery and dry. And that's it. You can top this with your maraschino cherry and enjoy. I want to thank everybody again for coming out to watch me tonight. My Venmo is Anita_manager. And like I say every night, the money from that goes directly to making all of these delicious desserts and these delicious beverages. Pause. How's that, Nicholas and Casey? I also want to repeat what I said earlier. It is so important for everybody to feel like they belong and feel like they have a place where they can be heard. And I want to appreciate all of you for coming and watching me, but I also want to appreciate all of our trans friends that are out and proud and themselves. And I want to encourage everybody to be themselves and be proud of who you are. Thank you again for coming out to Sip and Simmer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.
How do I do this again?